I have some hot new networking gear from Omada, including their Fusion Gateway, which lets you run their Omada SDN with 2.5 gig networking, and most importantly, it's got a touchscreen. This, along with some other 2.5 gig hardware, seems to be a viable solution for a lot of home labbers and businesses looking for a proper all-in-one setup. And don't tell anyone, but they have security integration coming soon too. Now, I haven't done an Omada video in a hot minute, but when they hit me up like, hey, we have some cool new stuff, do you want to do a video? I was like, oh yeah, 100%. Let's start by taking a look at exactly what we have here. The centerpiece and probably the most eye-catching piece of hardware here is definitely the new Fusion Gateway. This is effectively the mid-tier model of their new Fusion lineup, which still includes 2.5 gig WAN port and 4 combo meal WAN/LAN 2.5 gig ports. They claim you can run 4 simultaneous WANs through here, which is crazy, like who has 4 WANs? But yeah, this is a desktop unit. It's compact, looks nice, and most importantly has a touchscreen for displaying network info. Here are some specs about it, so pause the video if you're about that life, but the highlights are 2.1 gig IDS IPS throughput, 1 gig site-to-site VPN, hella VPN options, support for 300 clients, and has a max power of only 8 watts. Also worth noting is that with this Fusion line, they've done away with the need to have both a gateway device and a controller, and just package them all into one single device. According to the Omada site, they have quite a few other Fusion Gateway options like a PoE model, a more affordable G Plus model, and then a few Pro models, so something for everybody. The rest of the hardware is a bit more traditional. We have a switch and we have a few access points, so let's start with the switch. This is the SG2210XMP-M2. It's got 2 10 gig SFP plus ports and 8 2.5 gig PoE plus ports. Those will each do 30 watts, so you get a total PoE budget of around 160 watts, which should be plenty enough for a home or a small business setup. Obviously, if you have like 10 or so access points and a bunch of cameras, then you'll want to go with something larger, but this is a desktop setup here. All in all, it's a solid switch, and I would assume it meets the needs of nearly every home user looking to get into Omada. And since it's a managed switch, that means we get VLAN control per port, as well as some other features that we'll see when we get into the software side here in a bit. But the whole reason for having a 2.5 gig PoE switch is to power some Wi-Fi 7 access points, which we have 3 of here. The most traditional one of the bunch is the EAP772 or the Omada Pro Wi-Fi 7, which has a max bandwidth of 11 gigabits per second across its 3 bands and has a 2.5 gig PoE plus port for data and power. So with Wi-Fi 7, the thing people mostly care about is how fast it goes, and a big part of this is MLO, which is a Wi-Fi feature that combines all the bands to give you as much bandwidth as possible, rather than the traditional way of only operating on a single one. Note that your client device also has to support MLO as well to get the full benefit. Now, I don't traditionally do Wi-Fi speed tests because there's so many factors that go into it, but when I was testing on my iPhone as well as my PC, I was getting over 1 gigabit per second, and it depends on a lot of features, but I assume you can get higher than that, but 1 gigabit on Wi-Fi, plenty. The other 2 access points we have here are more purposely built. One is the EAP775 or the 7 Pro wall, which I think might be my favorite. Not because it's a Wi-Fi 7 access point that mounts to a standard wall plate, but because of the built-in 4-port switch. That's right, on the bottom there are 4 PoE ports. One is a 2.5 gig PoE plus, one is 1 gig PoE plus, and the last 2 are 1 gig PoE. The amount of power budget depends on if you're powering the actual unit via PoE plus or PoE plus plus, so the more you give it, the more you can pass through. This is such an awesome device for offices or rooms with a desk where you want Wi-Fi and a switch, but you don't want 2 separate devices. The last access point is kinda obvious once I tell you the name. It's the Omada 7 Pro Outdoor, designed for outdoors. This guy feels like a brick too, probably because of the big old heat sink on the back here, which prevents it from melting in the sun, since the sun is also outside and the sun is hot. But just like all the others, Wi-Fi 7, tri-band, 11 gigabits, etc., etc. The secret sauce that this brings to the table is obviously that it's rated for being outdoors and hot and wet, but it also has configurable antennas, so You can put it in a directional mode if you want it to just blast a Wi-Fi signal far in one direction, or omnidirectional for when you just want to blast Wi-Fi all over everyone around it. Pretty neat. So that's the hardware in a nutshell, and here are the prices as well, which honestly will be the biggest factor for a lot of people to determine if they're going to go with Omada as their choice of network gear. But now let's talk about software, because that's equally important, if not more so. Omada has made setup pretty easy these days, especially with their mobile app. When you first plug in your Fusion Gateway, it'll give you a QR code to scan to get the app, and once you're in, your gateway will be detected and you'll be guided through the setup process. If you have any devices plugged in, you'll be able to adopt them right there as well. Then it'll do a speed test, and holy moly, we got some fast internet these days. This is so much easier than the olden days where you needed to connect an access point, navigate to the IP, and adjust your settings in the browser. I mean, you can still do that if you want, but the mobile way is just way easier. Then if you add your access point later, you can go back into the app, and under devices, it'll show up as ready to be adopted. To adjust your Wi-Fi SSID, that'll be in the settings under Wi-Fi, and yeah, you guys know how to do this shit. The biggest features I think most people care about for their network are remote access or VPNs, firewall rules, and VLANs. Like I said, there is way more stuff here, but I'm not doing a 10-hour mini-series here, so let's just focus on those. For remote management, if you sign in using your Omada account, then you can legit manage your entire network from anywhere in the world, no strings attached. It's actually awesome. If you want remote access in the sense that you can connect to your devices within your network from anywhere, then you'll want to set up a VPN. And doing that is pretty easy as well. Under Network Config, VPN, you have quite a few options, but we want to focus on the main two, server and client. The server is going to allow you to connect back to your Omada network from anywhere in the world, and you have a few options to choose from. I'm typically an OpenVPN boy just because it seems to always work for me, so I'm going to go with that. You can leave most of the options default here, but you will want to create a user to log in as from your client device. After doing that, you're given the option to download the config file, which you'll use in whatever client software to connect back in, and that's it. It's legit that easy. They also have Lightlink VPN, which uses their own servers to form a tunnel into your network, which is definitely an easier way to connect, but you do have to create an Omada account for this to work. The other side of the VPN coin is the VPN client, which is connecting out to a VPN network from your Omada network. Usually this is a VPN provider that you pay for, but it could just be another VPN server at a friend's house or something. I've been using PIA forever now, and they have a cool little web tool to build an open VPN config file. Surprise, surprise, it looks just like the one before, so we can just import that, enter our PIA credentials, and boom, traffic is now flowing through that VPN server. You can get fancy with this and only have certain clients or networks route through it, but that's for another video. As for firewall rules, you'll want to come in here and do things like separate networks or devices and open ports for remote access. Now you'd think it would be in the firewall section, but that's just a whole bunch of settings that we aren't going to touch today. Actual port forwarding is done in the NAT section. Here you can open up ports and forward them onto self-hosted services. For example, maybe we want to set up a Plex server so we can give it a name, specify the source IP, which for a lot of people will be any, but if you want to be super secure, you'd limit this to only the specific public IPs that you'd want to connect, which involves getting those from your friends. But then you'd set the WAN, which we only have one of, the source port that it'll come in on, then the destination IP endpoint where you're hosting your Plex server. After you set that, then anyone will be able to reach your Plex server through your IP and source port. I'd recommend setting up a reverse proxy if you're going to get into hosting a ton of stuff though. Luckily, I have a video for that. For VLANs, just go into Network Config, LAN, which gives you an overview of your networks and lets you create a VLAN. So maybe we want to create a VLAN specifically for IoT devices. Well, we just give it a name, assign it a VLAN ID, which also sets our DHCP subnet for us, which is nice. And I typically like to go down and adjust the range to give me some space for some static IPs if I need them. Then in advanced settings, we can do things like set our own DNS server, create a domain name, and even isolate the network, so by default, nothing on this network can reach another one. After clicking next, we then set which ports this VLAN will operate on, which basically just means which ports do you want untagged traffic to use this VLAN on, since by default, all ports carry tagged traffic. So any port you select here means that by default, when you plug a device into it, then you'll get that VLAN. And that's it. You have a VLAN now. You're free to go back into your switch ACLs and adjust what your VLAN can talk to and what it can't. And I know that was a super high level version of this, but I do plan on going more into this because the software side of things is actually pretty interesting. As for performance, it performed as expected. The gateway got nearly the full 2.5 gig between two clients on the same VLAN, and inter-VLAN routing with IDS/IPS got around 1.7 gigs, which is pretty crazy. But overall, what do I think about this Omada setup? I mean, I like where they're going with this. They are clearly making an effort to simplify their product stack as well as their software without dumbing it down too much. As you guys saw, there is a ton of stuff to do in there, which requires an entire video, maybe a whole series. I think once they come out with their security side of things, that'll propel Omada even further as a viable all-in-one solution for home lab users and small businesses, because nearly every person has both networking and cameras in their house or business these days, so having them all in one setup is super convenient. So yeah, I'll be on the lookout for that. But what do you think? Are you rocking Omada system right now, or do you plan on getting one in the future? Let me know down in the comments. But that's all for this one. All of the products I showed off today are listed down in the description if you want to check them out. If you like this video, then drop a like and subscribe for more network content. I want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube members and my Patreons. You guys are my all-in-one Omada network with 2.5 gig PoE ports, Wi-Fi 7 and super fast IDS/IPS. Y'all are great. And if you're still watching, you're a UDP packet. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.